A revolution is underway in parts of the region. A Jesus revolution. An unprecedented number of Muslims are forsaking Islam and choosing to follow Christ, especially in Iran.
Imagine for a moment that you're walking through the bustling streets of Tehran at midnight. The air is thick with tension, and every shadow seems to whisper secrets. But hidden behind the walls of ordinary apartments, something extraordinary is happening. Something that would shock the world if they truly understood its magnitude. There's a woman named Mariam, not her real name, of course, who just finished her shift at a local hospital. She's exhausted, but she's not going home. Instead, she's making her way through narrow alleyways, checking over her shoulder every few steps. In her bag, wrapped carefully in old newspapers, is a book that could cost her everything. Her job, her family, possibly even her life. But here's what's incredible. Mariam isn't alone. Right now, as you're watching this video, thousands of people just like her are gathering in secret across Iran. They're huddled in basements, crowded into living rooms with blackout curtains, connected through encrypted video calls that they pray the government can't trace. And they're all there for the same reason that Mariam risked everything tonight. They've encountered Jesus Christ. Now, before you think this is just another feel-good story about religious conversion, let me tell you something that will blow your mind. We're not talking about a handful of curious individuals. We're not talking about a small movement that might fizzle out next year. What's happening in Iran right now is being called the fastest-growing church movement in the entire world. From fewer than 500 known Muslim converts to Christianity in 1979 to over 1 million today. Let that sink in for a moment. 1 million people have decided that following Jesus is worth risking everything they've ever known.
But here's where it gets really wild. This isn't happening because of some massive missionary campaign. Western missionaries can't even get into Iran. There are no flashy church buildings or celebrity pastors drawing crowds. In fact, it's illegal for Muslims to even attend church services. So how is this happening? The answer will give you chills. People across Iran are reporting the same thing over and over again. They're having dreams and visions of a man in brilliant white clothing who appears to them and says, "I am the way, the truth, and the life." They wake up knowing without a doubt that they've encountered Jesus. Ali, a former hardline Muslim who now leads an underground church network, told me his story just last month. He said he was actually a persecutor of Christians. He would report suspected believers to authorities. Then one night, he had a dream so vivid, so real, that it changed everything. In his dream, he was drowning in a dark ocean. The waves were crushing him and he couldn't breathe. Just when he thought he was going to die, a hand reached down and pulled him up. When he looked up, he saw a face filled with such love and peace that he started weeping. The man said, "I died for you so you could live for me." Ali woke up sobbing. He knew it was Jesus, even though everything in his religious background told him this was impossible. 3 months later, he was baptized in a bathtub by a woman named Sarah, who leads one of the most dangerous underground churches in Tehran. And that brings me to something that's absolutely stunning about this movement. In a country where women are told to be silent, where they're forced to cover themselves and stay in the shadows, the underground church is being led primarily by women. These aren't timid, scared women hiding in corners. These are fearless warriors who are baptizing new believers in secret locations, teaching theology and hidden Bible studies, and literally risking torture and death to spread the gospel. One of these women, let's call her Fatima, runs a network of house churches across 3 provinces. She's been arrested twice, tortured, and threatened with execution. Her own family disowned her and threatened to kill her for bringing shame to their name. But when I asked her why she continues, her answer stopped me cold.
She said, "For 35 years, I lived in darkness, believing God was angry with me, believing I could never be good enough, believing I was worthless. Then I met Jesus, and for the first time in my life, I felt loved. Not just loved, I felt like I had value, like I mattered to the creator of the universe. How can I keep that to myself? Even if they kill me tomorrow, I've already lived more in these 5 years following Jesus than in all my previous years combined." But here's what's really keeping government officials awake at night. This movement isn't just attracting the poor and desperate. It's reaching into every level of Iranian society. Doctors, engineers, university professors, even children of high-ranking government officials are secretly converting to Christianity. There's a neurosurgeon in Isfahan who performs brain surgery during the day and leads Bible studies at night. There's a nuclear physicist who was involved in Iran's nuclear program who now spends his evenings translating Christian materials into Farsi. There's even a woman whose father is a prominent Ayatollah who now runs an underground ministry for other daughters of Islamic clergy. The government knows what's happening and they're terrified. They've increased raids on house churches, they've sentenced Christians to decades in prison, they've tortured believers trying to get them to reveal the names of other converts. But here's the thing that's driving them crazy. Every time they arrest one Christian, 2 more seem to pop up in their place. Pastor David, who escaped Iran 5 years ago and now coordinates with the underground church from abroad, explained it to me this way. The Iranian government made a critical mistake. They thought that by making Christianity illegal, they could stop it. But they actually made it more attractive. When you tell Iranians they can't have something, especially when they're already questioning everything they've been taught about God, they become curious. And when they discover that this forbidden thing is actually the most beautiful truth they've ever encountered, nothing can stop them. And the testimonies of transformation are absolutely incredible. I've heard story after story of former drug addicts who were instantly delivered from their addictions the moment they prayed to Jesus. I've heard about miraculous healings that left doctors scratching their heads. But more than that, I've heard about the psychological and spiritual transformation.
Remember, these are people who grew up being taught that God is distant, angry, and impossible to please. They were taught that they need to earn their way to heaven through endless religious duties and rituals. They lived in constant fear of making mistakes that would damn their souls forever. Then, they encounter Jesus, and everything changes. They discover a God who loves them unconditionally, who already paid the price for their sins, who wants a personal relationship with them. They discover grace, forgiveness, and peace. For many of them, it's like coming alive for the first time. But let's be brutally honest about what this costs them. When someone in Iran converts to Christianity, they don't just risk legal trouble. They risk losing everything that makes life worth living in their culture. Their families often disown them completely. In a society where family connections determine everything from your job prospects to your social standing, being cut off from your family is devastating. Many lose their jobs when their conversion is discovered. Some are kicked out of universities. Others have their businesses destroyed or their professional licenses revoked. And that's before we even talk about the legal consequences. Christian converts in Iran face imprisonment, torture, and sometimes execution. But here's what blows me away. Knowing all of this, the conversions keep accelerating. People are willing to lose their families, their careers, their safety, and sometimes their lives for Jesus. Think about that for a moment. What would it take for you to be willing to lose everything? What would have to be so incredible, so life-changing, so absolutely true that you'd risk everything you have for it? For over 1 million Iranians, the answer is Jesus Christ. And here's something that gives me goosebumps. Many of these Iranian believers see their conversion as part of something much bigger than just their personal salvation.
They believe they're witnessing the fulfillment of ancient biblical prophecies. Iran used to be called Persia, and throughout the Old Testament, Persia plays a crucial role in God's plans. It was the Persian king Cyrus who allowed the Jewish exiles to return to Jerusalem and rebuild their temple. The Bible actually calls Cyrus God's anointed one. And now, thousands of years later, we're seeing Persians turn to the God of Israel in unprecedented numbers. Some Iranian Christian leaders believe this is connected to prophecies in Isaiah about Middle Eastern nations turning to worship God together. They see their suffering and persecution not as punishment, but as preparation for something incredible that God is doing in their region. This perspective gives them a strength that's honestly hard to comprehend. They're not just enduring persecution, they're embracing it as part of their calling. They see themselves as pioneers, as the first fruits of a spiritual awakening that will eventually transform the entire Middle East.
But here's what really challenges me, and I hope it challenges you too. These Iranian believers who risk torture and death just to own a Bible, who worship in whispers behind locked doors, who may never be able to openly declare their faith, they're often more passionate about Jesus than Christians who live in complete freedom. While we debate whether it's worth the effort to attend church on Sunday morning, they're risking their lives just to gather with 2 or 3 other believers. While we complain about minor inconveniences in our spiritual lives, they're praising God in prison cells. While we take our religious freedom for granted, they're treasuring every moment they can spend in secret prayer. Their courage exposes our complacency. Their passion reveals our lukewarmness. Their willingness to sacrifice everything makes our small compromises look pathetic. Right now, as you finish watching this video, somewhere in Iran, a small group of believers is gathering for church in someone's basement. They've turned off their cell phones, covered the windows, and they're worshiping the same Jesus that we claim to follow. They're praying for us, for Christians in the free world, asking God to use us to support their mission and to awaken the church everywhere. They're also praying for their persecutors, for the government officials who arrest them, for the family members who reject them. They're living out Jesus' command to love their enemies in ways that most of us have never had to consider. The Iranian Jesus revolution isn't just their story, it's a mirror that shows us what real faith looks like. It's a challenge that asks how much we're really willing to sacrifice for the gospel. And it's a reminder that God's Spirit is moving powerfully in the darkest places on earth, turning enemies into family, transforming hearts that seemed impossible to reach. 1 million converts in Iran, from 500 to 1 million in just 4 decades. These aren't just numbers, they're faces, names, stories, and souls. There are brothers and sisters who've chosen Jesus despite knowing it might cost them everything. And their revolution is just getting started.